some other part of the world. My name is James Olekesier. I'm a member of ACOFE and a patron of an indigenous community that it's a CBO. I'm a patron of a CBO by the name Ilkiremisho Community Organization. We do combat climate change. Otherwise, I'm very grateful to be in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Felicitas. Okay, Dr. Margaret.
Hello, everyone. I am Margaret Anna, and I'm a member of CHEST. I'm very glad to be here. And I welcome all of you because today's meeting will be very, very exciting and interesting. We are going to learn more because good nutrition is the key for the growth of children. In as much as we are concentrating on the nutrition, we should also check on the environment, which is environmental health, and finally the climate change, which has adverse effects on them. So we are going to balance everything, check the link and check the relationship between the three aspects of nutrition, climate change, environmental health. And also at the end of the day, I know we'll actually come up with a better way of taking care of our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ma.
Over.
And Professor Godson.
Sorry, Martin. Hello?
Mr. Percival, yes.
Yes.
Professor.
So greetings once again from Ghana. I am Percy. I'm a nutritionist, a dietitian, a researcher, and a lecturer at the University of Health and Allied Sciences, Ghana. And I have strong interest in pediatrics, nutrition, and planetary health. And, I'm also a leader of the ACOFE. And I am happy to be here with us. I'm glad to make new acquaintances and looking forward to working with all of us and having this learning from the conversations that are going to happen today. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Louis, for introducing yourself in the chat session, in the chat box. Wakigera.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nightingale Wakigera, and I am so glad to be in this meeting today. Really looking forward to learning more together with each other. I am in Kenya. I'm part of ACOFE, and yes, I don't know. I have children. I love children. This is great. The children are our future. So this is a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Munyinda?
Hello, good evening, good afternoon. I'm Nosiku Munyinda from the University of Zambia. I'm a lecturer in the Department of Environmental Health, School of Public Health. And yeah, I got the notice from Dr. Leslie Rubin, shared it on one of the groups that I'm in. So I'm very interested in what will be discussed today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Nathan.
Greetings, everyone. I'm excited to connect with you all virtually in this space and want to just issue a clarion call. Let us, from start to finish, ensure children are at the center of all that we do together. And with that, I don't think we can go wrong. So looking forward. Back to you, Matthew. Thanks.
Thank you, Mason.
A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining from. My name is Mason Kipila, and I am part of the coffee team and very glad to see you all in the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Erica, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, sorry I'm late. I just had to jump from another meeting. Erica Timko Olson. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Minnesota, and my work focuses on children and with cancer and nature-based interventions to support their health and well-being.
Thank you very much. Professor Godson?
Thank you very much, Matthew. Greetings to everyone. My name is Godson Anna. I'm a member of the chess team. I look forward to having very exciting moments of knowledge and experience sharing. Children are the center of it, and they are our future. They must be nurtured. Thank you. Over.
Thank you very much, Prof. My name is Matthew once more, and I will be handing over to Hilary, who will take the next session, and as well she'll be introducing herself. Thank you very much, and over, Hilary.
Thank you so much, Matthew, for the good work. Very good evening, good morning, good afternoon to you all, and welcome to this platform today. I'm not sure everyone has introduced themselves, but because of time, please feel free to text in the chat, introduce yourself, let us know who you are, where you are. Yeah, let's connect in the chat. So my name is Hilary Diana. I work with Akofi. Yes, I am admin at Akofi, and I am delighted to be hosting you guys tonight. Yes, I'll be taking us through CCC, what CCC is about in a nutshell, and the purpose of this meeting today. So CCC campaign, let's say, started some 3 months ago in October. It started in Kenya, and it was an idea that was born, between CHEST from Nigeria and Akofi from Kenya. So that is Dr. Nathan and Professor Godson of Nigeria. And ever since then, so again, CCC stands for children, climate, and conservation. That is what the 3 C's stand for, and just shortly mean triple. We are calling it CCC. So CCC's aim is to so it is a campaign to connect children, climate, and conservation. So children are or should be at the center of these 3 issues of climate and conservation. Children sorry for that. Children are the most vulnerable population of our societies, and they are the most affected population when it comes to things like climate change and pollution and lack of good food and nutrition issues and health and things like malaria. So centering children in our activities is a timely thing for us to do, and as well as matters conservation. When we're talking about conservation, I mean, children are not usually very often considered in these conversations, and yet I personally believe that they are solutions to issues that are affecting us. So Triple C has since then adopted a coalition framework. So the campaign is led by a coalition. So this coalition aims to bring like-minded individuals from all over the world who are interested in matters children, matters climate, and matters conservation. So there is a global campaign which is now hosting the campaign that is expected to run for 12 months, starting November 2020 to November 2020. So sorry, it started in November with an official launch on the 20th of November, which is World Children's Day, and will run for 12 months up to November 20th, 2026. So that will be the first phase of Triple C campaign. So the purpose of this meeting today is to set the pace for organizations that are joining the coalition, and just setting ground rules, or just informing each other on best practices for how to engage with kids in all of our activities in 2026 and moving forward. So that is the theme of today's meeting, just to hear from different individuals, different people from different places, and just so we can be at the same place as we begin the year, as we begin our activities in different places. Then we have guiding principles that have been borrowed from established organizations that will help us create children-friendly events moving forward, and again, family and children-friendly events moving forward. So that is a brief description. I know we will engage more as time goes by. Thank you. Back to Matthew.
So maybe I'll just briefly come in. Next, we are going to shift to the presentations, and hopefully everyone has been able to view the agenda for today's meeting in the chat. So we will have Maisen introduce both Beatrice and Godson, starting with Beatrice. So over to you, Maisen, to first introduce Beatrice. After that, we'll hear from Godson, and Maisen will also introduce Godson. Karibu, Maisen.
Thank you, Dr. Nathan. I have the pleasure to introduce our first speaker, that is Dr. Beatrice Kiage. And Beatrice is a research scientist in the Nutrition and Food Systems unit. She brings her expertise in addressing the interlinkages between climate change, food systems, nutrition, and health. She supports various projects, including the Zero Hunger Initiative, Wellcome funded PEIS Albrecht University, Kiel, in Germany, and Masters in Food Science, Nutrition, and Dietetics, and Bachelors in Food Science, Nutrition, and Dietetics, first class honors from Kenyatta University in Kenya. Before joining APHRC, she was a senior lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology for over 18 years. And so welcome very much, Beatrice.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mason. Let me share my presentation. I hope that you can be able to. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
And I hope that now it's on. You can see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, ma.
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, fine. So good evening, good morning, and good afternoon from wherever you're joining us from. So as you've heard, my name is Beatrice Kiage, and I work at the African Population Health Research Center as a research scientist. So this evening, really, it's my pleasure to speak up about children's rights to food at the nexus of climate change, health, and environmental protection. And as we all know, across Africa, climate change is reshaping really what children eat, how safely we are producing our foods, and whether our families are able to afford nutritious diets. And what is happening is that the climate crisis that we are facing right now is actually turning into, a children's rights crisis. So this climate change is not just affecting other people, but the children are really at the center of it. So this evening, I'll begin by explaining why climate change is fundamentally a child survival issue. Then I'll try to show how this undermines child nutrition and health, including some of the hidden threats of micronutrient deficiencies, and I'll also zero down on mycotoxins and especially aflatoxins. And I'll also touch briefly on why heat stress makes children especially vulnerable. And then I'll try to frame this through the right to food, trying to link conservation, food systems, and children's diets. And finally, I'll try to also look at policy and action priorities, which are needed to protect our children's futures. So why do we say that children are at the center of the climate crisis? I'd just like to point out that when you look at the low and medium income countries, and that is where really Kenya falls in, over 80% of the climate-related deaths occur in children. So we can see here clearly that children are the most affected. And then we look at the global picture, about 1 in 3 children globally is affected by malnutrition. And most of these children are actually even found in Africa and the LMICs. And most of this malnutrition stems from the climate crisis. And looking at climate change, it's already reducing our food quality, safety, and availability. And the children are really at the center of this. Such that we have unsafe food, we have hidden hunger, and heat stress. And this is all really threatening our children's survival and development. And what is happening is that the climate crisis is actually causing our food systems to fail. And as I said earlier on, when this happens, children are the ones that really bear all this burden. So when you're talking about climate change, it's not just an environmental crisis, but it is a direct violation of the children's right to food and health. So why am I saying this evening that, climate change is very important and the children are really at the center of this? Why does it matter? This matters because when you're looking at climate change, it is accelerating child malnutrition. And when I'm talking about child malnutrition, I'm looking at both undernutrition and overnutrition, both spectrum. And looking at Kenya in particular, we have effects of climate change that are causing, stressors like droughts and floods. And this is really reversing all the gains in child nutrition. And the people who are bearing all this brunt are children, especially in very vulnerable places like in arid and urban informal settlements. And we find that when it comes to food systems, they account for, like about 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions. And you know that these are the ones that are really, these are the ones that are responsible for the climate crisis that we are seeing. And when this climate crisis, of course, happens, children face hunger, they face unsafe food, disease increases, and even their learning is also affected. So looking at climate change is actually a child survival crisis, whichever way you look at it. And it's not just an environmental issue. And looking at climate change again, just going deeper, how it undermines child nutrition. Looking at droughts and floods, for example, when this happens, the food that is available is affected, because you can imagine when droughts come, if there were any food that was in the field, it's not going to grow. So that means that year, we're not going to have sufficient food. And when that happens, it is the children who bear this brand. Even floods, you can have a very good crop in the farm. But when the flooding happens, then we find that all this is swept away. Even animals are swept away. So meaning that children are not going to even get milk. And then when this crisis happens, whether it's, for example, floods, then even our markets are disrupted, such that the accessibility of food, especially the nutritious foods, is hampered. Because, like, for example, if bridges are, for example, they are swept off, or the roads are cut off, so the food can't even reach the market. Or even the one that is going to reach is going to be very little. So what happens is that our food prices are going to go high. And remember that most of these families where these children stay, they have a problem with food insecurity. So this is worsened, because it's not that when these stresses happen, the incomes go high, no. So you find that, people have to struggle, and children bear all this brand. And at the end of it all, we are seeing an increase in stunting. That is where children are too short, not only in stature, but also it affects their mental development, their cognitive development. Wasting increases, and even micronutrient deficiencies. And so when it comes to these micronutrient deficiencies, we find that, how does it happen? It's because when climate stresses come, they reduce the dietary diversity, such that, looking at the food groups, like children, like 6 to 23 months, they're supposed to get like 5 out of the 8 food groups. They will get less because people are just trying to survive, And then when climate crisis happens, even the soil fertility declines. And when that happens, that means that even the amount of nutrients that are there in the soils are also affected. And that means that even the plants which are going to grow there have less in terms of the nutrients. And also even in terms of access to micronutrient-rich foods like the fruits, the vegetables, and even animal source food. This is also interfered with. And what do we end up with? We end up with micronutrient deficiencies of very important micronutrients like iron, zinc, vitamin A deficiencies. Eventually, this, of course, is going to impair the growth of children. That is why we are talking about even stunting increasing. And also the immunity, because when children are malnourished, it means that they are not going to have optimal immunity. So that means that they're going to be so prone to infections and illnesses because their body defenses have been interfered with. And even their cognitive function, the way I said, is also affected. Let me look at the next thing, which I thought that I should zero in, because this is really a problem that is affecting, especially the LMICs. This is mycotoxins, and in particular, the aflatoxins. We have various types of mycotoxins, but the aflatoxins are really a problem. And I'm calling this the hidden climate threat. And why is it a hidden climate threat? It's because when there are these climates, for example, we have too much rain, and we find that sometimes it's very hot, it's humid, so fungal growth increases, and this is where the aflatoxins increase, and we find that it affects most of our staples like the maize and the groundnuts. And remember that these are the foods that our children are fed on, especially when it comes to complementary feeding. So what are we doing? We are giving them a lot of aflatoxin. And we find that even like, for example, when we have too much rainfall, we have a problem of even how we're going to dry these staples, and even how to store them is a problem. So it's just like, it's the right environment for aflatoxin to continue growing and growing. And this ends up affecting, like the growth of children. It starts faltering, it starts getting stunted. The immunity again, is suppressed. And when that happens, of course, we have an increase in disease in these children. So when you're talking about unsafe food, really is the violation of the right to food of these children. Because remember that we are supposed to provide safe food for the children. But when this food we are giving them, and because of the climate crisis that is happening, is loaded, for example, with the aflatoxins, then we end up with this unsafe food. So that means that we are actually violating their right to giving them the safe food. Looking at the heat stress, we find that looking at children, they have the way they're able to regulate their body temperatures is not the way adults do that. So we find that children do this very poorly. So they end up really getting affected. So they'll end up even with dehydration. And also we find that even illnesses come in. And a very interesting thing is that this heat stress also affects their school performance. A very good example, look at even like the northeastern provinces of Kenya, look at Lodwar, look at Turkana, look at places like even Kilifi, which is very hot. You rarely hear a child from there has performed so well nationally. And it's because these heat stresses actually affect even their concentration in class. And also, most of these places, again, which are affected by heat stress, have poor nutritional status. So you find that this really, the heat also even amplifies their poor nutrition. So it's very, very important that when we are looking at nutrition of these children, coming up with, strategies which are climate sensitive and the mind about child nutrition is very essential, especially when it comes to adaptation. And then when you're talking about the right to food, and we say that the right to food is actually affected by the climate crisis. And what this means is that when climate crisis happens, pillars such as availability, accessibility, adequate and safe food, and also sustainable production is affected. Yeah. So climate change really affects each and every pillar, these 4 pillars. Yeah. And children are the ones that are most affected. Looking at conservation and even how this really, how does it affect our children's diets? When we conserve our environment, that means that we're going to have healthy ecosystems. And when we have a healthy ecosystem, it means that the food, the water is clean, and also it supports the children, and we have clean air. And all these are very essential for child survival. And also it means that even the biodiversity is also preserved. And that means we're going to have more nutritious, diverse, and even resilient diets. But when that does not happen, then we have this degradation of our environment, which of course will increase hunger, disease, and even displacement. Because you see, what happens is that when, for example, we have drought and all those, and we have floods, people must move, and children also move along, and they're the ones who suffer most. So we have to really protect our environment, yeah? And we have to look at it like this is a legal thing and a moral obligations we have as we want to protect the children's rights. So therefore, when it comes to our children, all of us, we must aim to protect our children. And whatever policies we come up with as governments and even as non-governmental organizations, as we support countries and as we support governments, we must make sure that these policies explicitly integrate nutrition, child nutrition into climate policies, which most of the times is actually forgotten. And we must also aim to really strengthen food safety and even mycotoxin control. And then also it's important that we invest more in climate resilient school and community food systems, and enforce children's rights to food. And this is the only way that we can use these actions to operationalize children's constitutional rights. For example, like in the Kenyan Constitution, Article 53, this is actually enshrined in our Constitution. And as I come to the end, I'd like to say that when it comes to climate crisis and climate change, it threatens children's rights. Whether it is to food, it is to safety, all those is threatened. And when we protect our children, making sure that they get the right food, then we are actually protecting their lives. And we should really come together and safeguard this right to food, because while doing that, then we know that we are actually safeguarding the future of our children. And remember that this really are our future generation. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for your time and attention. And I look forward to your questions to really continuing this conversation on how we can work together to protect our children's rights, especially to food in this changing climate. And remember, Africa's future cannot rise on empty plates and unsafe foods. And this is why protecting our children's right to food must be at the center of any climate action that we are taking. Thank you very much for your audience.
Thank you so much, Beatrice, for that wonderful presentation. Next, we will invite Mason to introduce Godson. Welcome, Mason.
Thank you. Thank you, Nathan. So I'll read Professor Godson Anna bio. Professor Godson Anna is a professor of environmental health sciences, foundation head, Department of Environmental Health Sciences, and a former dean of the Faculty of Public Health, College of Medicine at the University of Ibadan in Nigeria. He has about 25 years of cognate experience in teaching, research, and community services. He has trained over 200 masters and 17 PhD students, respectively. He has well over 180 publications in reputable peer-reviewed local and international journals and patents. He is a beneficiary of several international fellowships. Godson has provided leadership in the development of air quality management protocols and systems in the industry and community settings, and has also initiated several climate-related projects as the pioneer coordinator of the Climate and Society program of the Center for Sustainable Development at the University of Ibadan. He has provided leadership in the development of policy guidelines on the establishment and implementation of protocols on environmental health management, including waste management and environmental conservation amongst in school and out of school children. He also led the environmental health team on the design and implementation of non-pharmaceutical approach, including hand hygiene on COVID-19 prevention in Oyo State. He is an honorary professor in the School of Public Health at the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa, an adjunct professor with Nelson Mandela University, South Africa. He's a visiting professor with the Department of Environmental and Public Health at the University of the Gambia. He is an examiner and an assessor to several institutions within and outside Nigeria. He is a consultant to several local and international organizations on different environmental health issues, including the Fleming Fund, Antimicrobial Resistance Project, the NCDC, Driven One Health Project, and recently Water Aid Hygiene Project. Professor Godson is a member of several professional bodies within and outside of Nigeria. He is the founder and president of the Child Health, Environment, and Safety Trust, a children-based NGO. He is a founder of the Environmental Health Scientists Association of Nigeria. He is registered with and licensed by the Environmental Health Council of Nigeria. Welcome, Godson, to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Messin. Quickly, I'll just go straight to sharing my slide. Yeah. So, I am to share experiences on the topic advancing children's environmental health through integrated and community-centered research. Every child deserves to live. Every child deserves to be nurtured. Every child deserves to be protected. Every child deserves the right environment to thrive. Every child must be heard. Every child must be given the chance to attain his or her life potential. Every child must be well guided to achieve purpose and destiny in line with God's plan. Children's environmental health is shaped by multiple interacting factors that profoundly influence their physical, cognitive, and developmental outcomes, particularly in vulnerable communities, as captured by the United Nations bodies, WHO and UNICEF. There are a number of environmental determinants that influence the health outcomes of children, and I'll take us through a few of them. Topmost is air pollution, and because this is amongst the third most critical drivers of global health burden diseases. 93% of children globally breathe polluted air exceeding WHO limits. In terms of water quality and sanitation, poor sanitation causes around 297,000 child deaths annually due to diarrheal disease. In terms of exposure to toxic chemical substances, lead and organic related pollutants, chronic lead exposure is associated with lower intelligence quotients and poor academic performance. In terms of housing and build settings, poor ventilation, crowding, and mold exposure increases respiratory and skin disorders. With climate change, the issue at hand increases vector-borne diseases, heat stress, nutrition, and increased burden felt in low and medium income countries. Well, just to emphasize that 1 in every 10 child deaths globally are associated with exposure to polluted air. In Africa, is the second largest health risk factor after malnutrition. So exposure to fine particulate matter, that is PM 2.5, other than the higher fraction of PM10, is linked to nearly 7 million premature deaths, cutting across household air pollution and ambient air pollution. About 829,000 global deaths per year are from unsafe water and poor sanitation, mostly among children. And 297,000 child deaths from children under 5 are mostly from diarrheal diseases. Only 54% of African schools have safe drinking water. And again, this is very alarming. In terms of climate change, The drivers, it drives 80% of disease burden in children, especially those under 5 that are most vulnerable. By 2050, the prediction is that 1 in 4 children will live under extreme water stress. There are issues with respect to neurodevelopmental problems. 600,000 new cases per year of intellectual disability from lead exposure are associated with this. And over 800 million children are exposed to unsafe lead levels. In Nigeria, there are a lot of issues from illegal minings, and the Zamfara case episode is a typical example, and a number of other pockets of hotspots of illegal mining that expose the children to heavy metals. I'll take us through a few case scenarios where CHEST particularly has been involved in identifying some of the risk factors and issues related with these exposures. For example, we carried out studies amongst caregivers as well as children and identified issues related to hand washing practices and knowledge. And we discovered that before cooking, most of them, over half the proportion, agreed that hand washing must be done before cooking, and of course, before and after toilet use. And less than a quarter agreed that hand washing should be done before the bedtime. Regarding knowledge on sanitation, absolute number agreed that waste should be sorted, and 78% identified dumping in drainages as very unhealthy. We carried out studies during the COVID period, and our studies centered on a number of schools on the use of face masks. And our experiences had shown that 97.4% acknowledged masks should be disposed of in lidded bins, and 68.4% identified cross-contamination as a key risk of careless disposal, where there could be cross-contamination and aggravation of vulnerability. 81.6% agreed the reusable mask must be washed with disinfectant. And again here, experiences from the field showed a lot of disproportionate use of the face mask. Our studies on e-waste and child health also, especially with parents that were involved in some of these practices. 69.2% were not using personal protected equipment, and 53.8% were aware of hazardous materials, and the absolute figures had sustained work injuries, which were provided caveats for exposure to both physical, chemical, and biological contaminants. Our studies on malaria vector show that absolute numbers were aware of malaria and vector-borne conditions, and 87 identified bushy environments, overgrown settings as mosquito breeding sites, with 82.6% strongly agreeing that insecticide-treated nets could be useful to prevent malaria. We also carried out a number of studies on safe buildings. Exposure to building settings is one of the risk factors because close to 90% of the time is spent indoors. And so children who are the most vulnerable population with a longer period of residency time in the build settings are exposed to a cascade of both chemical and biological contaminants. And so studies show that 58.3% live in single room dwellings, with 79.2% exposed to cooking indoor ambient cooking indoor pollutants. 90% ensured electrical and chemical safety for children in those settings. And we observed that there was a lot of combustion of biomass, especially from waste-related materials, as well as poor drainage conditions that causes exposure to stench and odors that infiltrated the natural ventilations. We carried out studies on the climate-induced flood and on safe conditions of children. Our studies showed that it was important to mobilize the community, sensitize them, and increase neighborhood preparedness for those kind of hazards. The target population were households with children living across and within the floodplains. Between 2011 and 2022, there were over a number of dozens of serious flood conditions that were incriminated in sweeping a number of settlements and causing preventable child deaths from those in schools and out of school. The residents were enlightened on flood impacts and series of adaptation measures, as you can see in the pictures. We also carried out studies on antimicrobial stewardship amongst school children, and the knowledge level was impressive, with most of them indicating that they heard about AMR from their teachers as well as from the electronic media. 47% correctly defined AMR as germ-resisting antibiotics, and 40% identified not completing medication as the main cause. 40% recognized good hygiene as infection prevention measure. In terms of attitude and practice, 83% strongly agreed antibiotics should be doctor prescribed. That is, issues related to having medications well, dispensed by the physician and the pharmacist. 64% strongly agreed with buying antibiotics without prescription. And in terms of the perception and risk awareness, 57% identified infants as most vulnerable to AMR, and 53% linked AMR to longer hospital stays and higher costs. Again, this also heightens the level of vulnerability of our children to the increasing scourge of AMR that we're currently experiencing. We also carried studies on combating cholera among children. Now, with the climate change impact, especially in extreme events like flood in settings, comes the problem of the carriage of microbial contaminants across the different phases of water systems. So 90% had heard of cholera, which is one of the waterborne infections, and 40% correctly identified severe diarrhea and vomiting as main symptoms associated with this. So in terms of preventive measures, 43% mentioned clean water, hand washing, sanitation combined as some of the things that could be done. 83% strongly agreed treating water prevents cholera, while 87% strongly agreed government should provide clean water. The risky behaviors showed that 26% still drank untreated water regularly, 17% believed untreated water may be safe. So in terms of the health perception, the total number of those that participated in the survey believed safe water in schools could improve child health, and we can never agree less. In recent times, precisely last year, we carried out a survey that involved some schools, and that was part of the activities to identify with the World Children's Day event in November, and we carried out the climate-induced heat stress and learning outcomes. I mean, just to further support Beatrice's presentation on exposure to climate heat and effects on learning outcomes. In terms of awareness and exposure, teachers and were the primary source of information for the students as regards climate-induced stress and stress, heat stress recognition as a factor. For the school, one was 80% and school two was 68%. In terms of the environmental conditions, both schools use the zinc and aluminum roofs with poor insulation, while approximately 35% reported classrooms as very hot. This is very serious when we look at the expanse and the ecological disparities that are present in Nigeria, with the extreme conditions and the far north ecological locations compared to the central part of Nigeria and the very humid tropical belt in the southern part and the southeastern part of the country. Whereas one of the schools relied more on natural ventilation, the second depended more on mechanical ventilation using the fans, which was just about a quarter of the proportion. In terms of health and learning impact, headaches, that is, amongst the school 1 compared to school 2, fatigue, approximately half of them, and there were a lot of concentration issues, lack of attention, and concentration deficits amongst more than a quarter of the proportion. That we also observed a relationship between heat exposure and poor concentration based on this inferential analysis. And in terms of adaptation measures, we discovered that what was very prevalent was the opening of windows and then limited access to drinking water. So what will be our next steps and future projections? We will align with WHO and UNEP based on the 2025 to 2030 goals to integrate wash, pollution control, and climate adaptation into children's health programs and scale up community wash interventions to curb cholera and other waterborne infections amongst children. We will support efforts towards achieving the SDG 6 by promoting access to safe water and sanitation, contributing to 4 times acceleration needed globally. Advocacy for climate resilient learning environments to address the projected 12 to 15% rise in heat-related learning disruptions. Our work will contribute to the global action reducing the 1.7 million annual child deaths linked to poor environmental health. We plan to expand our school-based environmental clubs to drive peer-led behavioral change and hygiene education. We will champion climate-smart schools, improving ventilation, shading, and hydration to enhance children's attention, concentration, and well-being in learning places. In partnership with the Ministries of Health, Education, and Environment, we will foster child-safe, healthy, and climate-resilient communities. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, environment is key to the survival of a child. Children remain disproportionately affected by poor air, water, and other forms of environmental quality. Field data shown high awareness but persistent behavioral and infrastructural gaps across communities. Education, access, and enforcement are essential to close the knowledge-practice divide. Programs on cholera prevention, AMR, and heat stress demonstrate the value of community-centered research in improving child health outcomes. An integrated, community-driven approach to environmental health, combining research, education, and policy advocacy is vital to safeguard children's health and learning potential in a changing climate. So I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Dr. Nathan, you are muted.
Thank you, Hillary. I just had realized that. So thank you so much, Professor Godson and Professor Kiage, for those amazing presentations. I am confident we have quite a few reactions and discussion questions that we will be able to cover over the next approximately 10 minutes, in which we will do the question and answer and panel discussion, kind of a hybrid combination, so that we also give Godson the chance to react to Beatrice and vice versa. And for this, I want to request Dr. Margaret to assist as we invite audience members to either post in the chats any questions that you have. I've seen a couple already posted for Beatrice. And also let me invite Dr. Margaret to give your initial reactions to the presentations that have just been shared, and then I will monitor the chats as we proceed. Let us aim to have this overall group discussion in the main room for the next 10 minutes, and then we have breakout rooms planned so that we will have the strong opportunity to get to know each other better and to ensure that all of us are able to have our voices heard and included and incorporated into the Triple C campaign framework for shared action moving forward together. Over to you, Dr. Margaret.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nathan. And I am Margaret Godson. Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Beatrice. I think, do I know her name again? Dr. Beatrice, I wrote it somewhere. Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Beatrice Kaige. Thank you for the presentation. She talked about, in summary, she gave us 7 outlines. And she told us that children are at the center of the climate crisis, that 1 in every child globally attached by what? Malnutrition. She talked about climate change that is already reducing food quality safety. And that why does it actually matter to children? Because climate change to children is survival crisis, not just an environmental issue. She went ahead to tell us that children face hunger, unsafe food, disease, and learning loss. She also talked about how climate change undermines child's nutrition. Drought and floods reduce food availability. She went ahead to explain that disrupted markets reduce access to nutritious food, rising food prices worsen household food insecurity. And she said the result is that increased stunting and wasting and micronutrient deficiencies are actually the result. And the 4th point was that climate change and micronutrient deficiencies. She told us that climate stresses reduces dietary diversity, and declining soil fertility lowers nutrient density in foods. And what were the impacts? The impacts were actually in the elements: the iron, zinc, vitamin A deficiency, impaired growth and immunity and recognition. She gives another point, which is the mycotoxins. Mycotoxins, she talked about basically on aflatoxins, which is the Eden of climate threat. She said it's because of the hot and humid condition it increased the fungal growth, groundnuts, and also climate change worsens contamination during dry and storage period. And that was when she moved ahead. I didn't get anything from there. So I moved to the heat stress and children's health. So children regulate body heat poorly, and also there's poor nutrition, amplified vulnerability to heat. The heat exposure causes dehydration, illness, and poor growth. Talked about climate-sensitive child nutrition is essential for adaptation. And what is the right to food in a climate crisis? She gave us 3, and I just summarized it in 3 A's: the availability, the accessibility, and adequate safe water and food. And the last one, which is the sustainable products. She now went ahead to tell us the conservation, food systems, and children's diet. Summarized by saying healthy ecosystems sustain food, water, and clean air essential for child survival, and biodiversity underpins nutritious and diverse resilience. And what were the policies and action priorities? Integrate child nutrition into climate policy. She gave us 4, but I was able to get 3: strengthen food safety and invest in climate resilience, school, and community base. In summary, to summarize, that climate change threatens children, right? So we must protect our food, our children's life. That when food are being protected, our children's lives are also protected. And the last but not the least, safeguarding the right to food is a safeguarding the future of our children. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Beatrice. So can I go ahead with the one for Professor, or I can? Hello,
Yes.
Mr. Manhattan, over.
Yes, please proceed. Thank you for that excellent summary.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes, Professor Godson, Anna, his own topic. Sorry, I didn't tell us about the topic of oh my God, the topic of Dr. Beatrice Kaige was was children's right to food at the nexus of the climate change, health, and environmental protection. Yes, so Professor Gosnana, he's talking about, his title was on advancing children's environmental health through integrated and community-centered research. He gave us 7 preambles, started with the background, which is some key environmental determinants and health impact on children. So there are the air pollutions, the water quality and sanitation, toxic climate exposure, which are the heavy metals and lead and pesticides, housing and built environment, and climate change. I also added that the neurodevelopmental problems are also part of it. There's some cases which was carried out was the hand washing, talked about before cooking, after using toilet, after touching animals, going to bed, even visiting. I just added this one anyway, let me leave that one. Secondly, sanitation and hygiene. Told us about sanitation and hygiene. And the third one was face masks, which is disposal because of cross-contamination as a key risk of careless disposals. The fourth point, it was the e-waste and child health, not using appropriate protection and PPE, protective PPE, please. The fifth one was the malaria vector control, not using insecticides, treated nets. And also the fifth point was safe building for healthy children. Overcrowding, maybe cooking indoors and waste, burning, and poor drainage condition, which causes stench and other. And talk about the climate-induced flood and safety programs. The programs involve community-based target populations where the children living in a flooded environment. Talk about antimicrobial resistance. Talk about the knowledge, the attitude, and the practice. And also combating cholera among children. This is the knowledge itself, have to know it, and the preventive measures, the risky behaviors involved, and the health perspective. Talk about the climate-induced health stress, learning outcomes, which is awareness and exposure, heat stress recognition. Teachers are the primary information source. Second, environmental condition such as use of zinc and aluminum roof, which is poor insulation. The third point was the health and learning impact, which is headache and fatigue. The last but not the least was adaptation measures, which is open doors, limited access to drinking water. So what was the next step and the future projection? We have to align with the World Health Organization and the UNEP to integrate WASH, W-A-S-H, control and climate adaptation into children's program and scale up community WASH intervention to curb cholera and diarrhea disease among children. Just summarize by saying that education, access, accessibility, and enforcement are essential to close the knowledge and the practice divide. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Margaret, for that very concise and also clear summary of both presentations. You did amazing work in a short time span and really did well to capture the key points. So from my side, just want to synthesize that as part of the CCC campaign, we are looking at also 3 A's, that is awareness and advocacy and action. So with that very important content that we heard from Professor Godson and Professor Kiage, we have the baseline awareness, and that enables us to have coordinated advocacy leading to a shared framework for coordinated action. So thank you so much. I want to invite Knight, who has summarized a couple of questions for Dr. Kiage in the chat. One was about aflatoxin, and she also had relayed a question from Lewis. So let me invite Knight to come in to do those couple of questions.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Nathan. And thanks so much to our presenters, both Professor Godson and Dr. Beatrice. Really great conversations. I'm hoping that Dr. Kiage, you have seen the questions I had posted. I was actually in the process of posting a question for Dr. Godson. But if Dr. Kiage, you've been able to see the questions, would it be okay for you to respond to them? And then I can see if I'm able to, say something else, because I think I had expressed what I had. And also Luis, who's from Brazil, I believe, also had a question that I posted there as well. But really great presentations, and especially when we think about that, the truth is that for our own survival as humans, we cannot do anything else but put children at the center. So really appreciate the presentations to both of you. Over to you, Dr. Kiage.
Yeah, thank you so much, Knight. I can see a couple of questions, and I think the first one is about my suggestions on how to check foods for aflatoxins, especially in boarding schools and school meals, where parents have little control over how the food is stored or managed. Also, ways to minimize and eliminate aflatoxins in food. Really, what I'd like to say about boarding schools is that the first thing that should happen is that when they are sourcing food, they should source food from really like accredited sources, which are inspected, because like when it comes to maize, I think it's about 13% in terms of moisture content. It should not be more than that. So that should be checked very clearly. And then also like they should do inspection of these foods as they receive them, the maize, because we know that that is done a lot in boarding schools. And also the stores where they keep these foods, they should be raised, because you see, like when you place this, we call them gunias, they're called bags, we call them gunias in Kenya. Then they, like if you just place them on the floor just like that, they're likely to, to get damp. So it should be on a raised surface. And it's important that school administrations really take time to be checking this food, and they should use this thing of like fast in, fast out, so that you don't have other foods just accumulating there and accumulating the moisture. And then also it should be really like in a well ventilated place, because sometimes you find that some of the stores are really like in dark places, and with not even, there's no aeration and all that. So that should be done very clearly. Then there are these sacks that we have in Kenya. They are used also, I know whether they're in other African countries. They're called, what's their name? I think hematic bags that are lined with polythene paper inside. That helps to keep off even like this other, like the weevils and all that. But also that's a very good bag to keep, keeping the grain so that they don't get moisture from outside, because there's moisture in the air. So I think it's about keeping. Then also when like the food is before it is cooked, it's good that it's selected, so that you can actually even see some of these foods which already, you can actually even see this one is really aflatoxin infested. But one thing I learned that is very interesting is that sometimes this aflatoxin starts right from the farm, and sometimes we're not even able to see it. So that is why it's important that from time to time like they bring in the Kenya Bureau of Standards to keep on checking these grains, because remember that aflatoxins are really a big menace. Apart from affecting even like the immunity of the children, they can actually cause deaths. We have had cases in Kenya whereby very many people have died because of aflatoxin poisoning, and also it's one of the causes of liver cancer. So it's something that is really needs to be looked at very much. So but once food has been infested with aflatoxins, once that is found out, the best thing is to discard that food, because there's nothing that really supersedes human life, and we're talking about the life of children. So if it isn't actually, it is pointed out that it is infested with aflatoxins, then that food should be discarded. Then there's this other question: in this day and age of climate change affecting the nutritional values of our schools, related to soil degradation, what is your advice on sustainable adaptation measures in arid and urban informal settlements, especially in relation to nutrition and heat-related issues affecting children? Maybe I'll just give an example of, for example, like, yes, we have, of course, climate change is affecting the quality of our diets and even the amount of very essential nutrients, like the zinc, the iron, the vitamin A in these foods. So what can help us is to, like advocate more for, a variety of foods, data diversity, such that now we sensitize the population, because sometimes people, like feed children on foods which are less, they are of poor quality because they don't have the knowledge. So sensitizing, like the population about this. And also another thing that we do at APHRC is really encouraging people to start like kitchen gardens, even coming up with what we are calling corn gardens, even in schools and in homes, whereby you don't really have to own a big plot of land. You can just use your balcony. You can just use the small spaces to be able to grow various fruits and vegetables that you can actually supplement your diet from. So those are some of the things that I can talk about. And also when it comes to like the heat stress, some of these places, like if you talk about like places like Turkana, places like Kilifi, we had some of this traditional roofing which was really very good, and I think it should still be encouraged, where they used to use thatching as opposed to iron sheets. That helped a lot to cushion children, from these, from these heats. And also just, growing trees around the school, that helps to cool the environment. And sometimes even for aesthetics, there are some plants that even like they spread across, like the walls and the roofs, that can help a lot. And just trying to make sure that we have, these community activities whereby we have like boreholes in schools, because we are seeing that another problem with this heat stress, that like children don't even have water, even to cool themselves. So those are just some of the adaptation measures that I can think about right now. And then there's another question about, let me see what other question was there. Yeah, school curricula could be a tool for enhancing food security. Yes and no. It can be, it can, like, for example, yes, okay, it's good when we inform people about this, but you can imagine like some of the schools don't have very big land. So what I say, it may not really like work for food security, but it can work for nutrition security or improving dietary diversity and dietary quality of their meals, because sometimes it's just small pieces of land they have, so they can grow vegetables here, they can keep little, chicken here and there to just supplement their diets. And of course, yes, the school gardens, we encourage that a lot. That will, help in improving the dietary quality of their diets. I don't know whether there's another question for me. I hope that I've tried to answer these questions in brief. I'm also keeping my eye on the clock. Knight, have I answered everything, or is there something that I have not covered properly? I will be glad to go back to it.
Thanks so much, Dr. Kiage. Yes, you have covered it really well. And I'll be reaching out with a few more just follow-ups, but thank you so much.
So thank you again, Professor Kiage and Professor Godson, and also Dr. Margaret, for your summary of the presentations. Next, we have breakout rooms planned so that everyone is able to hopefully make a new connection, because ultimately we are stronger together. And to ensure that children, climate, and conservation are meaningfully connected and even integrated locally and globally, we have to do it together. So we invite you to make a new friends and also see how we can stay connected and move forward together. The breakout room discussion questions have been posted in the chat, and we'll invite a representative from ACOFI and or CHEST, who should be in the different breakout rooms to serve as the facilitator and timekeeper. We will be in the breakout rooms for 15 minutes before coming back for a brief report back, and then conclude with action points and next steps. In case you are not able to stay for the breakout rooms or need to leave, we have had posted in the chat the link to the WhatsApp group for the Triple C campaign and also the email address where we invite any feedback, any questions about how we're doing and how we can do better. So I'll invite Tracy to bring us into the breakout rooms. There should be approximately 4 people per breakout room. And we will start with a brief self-introduction so that everyone knows everyone else. And then we invite you to have a lively and interactive discussion. Over to you, Tracy, to bring us into the breakout rooms. Thanks, and see you all soon.
So I think I have taken myself. Hello, Pamela. I can hear you. I guess we are the only ones who have moved out of the breakout room. Oh, okay. If you can hear me, we had just moved to the breakout rooms, and somehow I accidentally took myself out, but I accidentally closed my Zoom app. So I just logged back in, but I can't seem to find my way back to the breakout room. The host is not here either. So it's, Pamela, can you hear me? Somehow. Oh, great. Um, well, I'm not too sure how the breakout room. Mark. No. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I'm not sure what happened over the 15 minutes we were away. I can only see 5 of us. Okay, yes. More people are joining us now. Thank you. Welcome back, Dr. Nathan, and back to you.
Thank you, Hillary. And yes, a warm welcome back to everyone. We hope that you made a new friend, a new connection, and will have a next step to remain connected to not just the community at large, but to some of the new connections that were just made. We want to take a few minutes to do a report back from each of the 4 breakout rooms. I was in breakout room number 4 with Lewis and Percy, Delali, and Simpanoy. So I want to maybe go in order 1, 2, 3, 4, and just give Simpanoy a heads up that I want to invite you to be the one to summarize in approximately 1 minute the discussion that we had in our breakout room. I don't know who was in breakout room 1, or if you have a designated person to give a 1 minute summary of key points from your time together. So please, someone from breakout room 1, if you could give us a summary of what you discussed before we jump to rooms 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, I am the one from group 1. I'm the one who was convening group 1. And I can actually see a member of my group, that is Dr. Kiage, has requested to leave. I don't know whether she is still in the meeting. Yeah, just in case yes, maybe she stepped away. So I was in the room with Dr. Margaret, Dr. Beatrice, and Onyema from Nigeria. And we've had a very nice session. The 15 minutes flew by very fast, but it was a nice engagement. So we gave our feedback, very warm feedback, especially since we had Dr. Kiage with us in our session, in our group. And so, yeah, it was really nice. But number 2 and number 3, we have gotten, again, very good feedback. And some of the points that have been mentioned is that since we ourselves from different organizations and individuals have different skill sets and abilities, it is important for us to leverage on these skills to be able to complement the work that we are doing from wherever we are. So skills on research, it is important for us to leverage on research to be able to translate the things, to translate the realities on ground. And on that same line of research, our group, we said that it would be important for us to break down the research, which is more scientific and has more of the scientific knowledge. How can we break that information for it to be understood by the common person at the ground level who need this information? So it is important for us as individuals and organizations that wherever we are working from, we just don't stop at the findings we have come to. Can we go the next step to interpreting the data, breaking down the findings to the community? Because after all, this research is done at the community level. You go to a community and do research with them. And then after that, rarely do people go back and tell the community that this is what we found out, this is the strengths, maybe the weaknesses, the opportunities that we can leverage on in this particular community. Another thing that was said is let's see about having information that is child friendly. So again, even this research that we are doing, how can we make it understandable to children of all ages? So it means we need to be creative. We need to also even have teachers and caregivers on board who have more experience with dealing with kids and who can help us in breaking down this information in a way that kids can understand and digest. So yeah, that is it from my group. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. That was a comprehensive review of what sounds like a very good discussion. And thank you for that summary. Now to the spokesperson for Breakout Room 2. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nathan. I was in breakout session room 2 with Dr. Comfort Owulabi, Nasiran Kiriko, and Myson, as well as James Ole Kessier. So we, as regards the first question, it was so enlightening to all of us who were in the room. We saw different angles that we were, would I say, maybe we were not so, we did not know, or we did not know about. So the two presentations brought about the ways that we can further do things in terms of research and as well as advocacy in terms of food, the aflatoxin. We were able to get knowledge on what we can do and the things we can be doing going forward. As regards the second question, as regards what we can do, we talked about that we can use our respective organizations. We can leverage on our respective organizations to be able to reach out to different communities. We talked about that because we are all coming from different places in Africa or around the world. We can like has been said, or like Hilary said before, we can communicate to our different communities through what we've learned here today. As we are also seeing these things and are new, we can be sure that people in the community don't have this awareness or don't have this knowledge. So we, through our respective organizations in our different respective communities, we will be able to leverage on our partnerships and our connections and what we've learned so far to be able to reach the different communities. We also talked about the different mitigation or adaptation strategies to use. It was mentioned that we have to start advocating for climate smart schools. This was really emphasized in terms of the types of uniforms that students usually wear. Some wear a very thick uniform in a very hot climate. So it was also said that we should start advocating for those things, as well as buildings, the type of buildings that are being built for should be climate smart, should be climate friendly. So that was majorly what we discussed, and the fact that we will all use our connections to be able to reach out to the general public as well as communities where we are all based to share the good gospel of what we are doing here. Thank you very much, Dr. Nathan. And over.
Thank you, Matthew. And I think we give a strong commendation to Breakout Room 2 for following the lead of Breakout Room 1 and having a great discussion and also summarizing some clear action points for us to move forward together. Welcome, spokesperson for Breakout Room 3.
Yeah, so we ended up being Professor Godson and I, because I think maybe either the rest of our team members were put in other groups or they fell off. But we looked at so what we found most important, or what stood out the most to us. Of course, our professor was one of the presenters, but we both agreed that just thinking about the importance of putting the children at the center and having that be our guiding star was what stood out to us the most, and we agree that it is the most important. If we use that as our litmus or our guiding star, then we cannot go wrong. And then the other one is what ideas we have on how we can support each other. And here we talked about looking at just the different skill sets that resonate between the two organizations, and by extension from the others that we know about. There would be just the leadership, the team building, communications, research and data collection, and even partnering on the grant writing and resource mobilization towards this work of putting children at the center, looking at climate, children, and also leveraging heavily on each other's strengths would make it just more workable. And then the last one was that we are looking at the importance of increasing awareness and the momentum for advocacy, as well as making sure that advocacy education goes hand in hand with actions, because without the actions, without for example, if we're educating a lot on antimicrobial resistance, but then there's no action taken, we're not involving the policymakers, for example, so that some stricter measures can be taken in the use of the antibiotics or something along those lines, then the advocacy and that education does not help in any way. So it's making sure that the actions plus education and advocacy go hand in hand. Yeah, so that's what I have, and unless Prof, you'd like to add something.
Excellently captured, Knight.
Yeah, thank you, Knight, and happy to hear that you too were able to have a team building session for Knight and Prof, and also by extension, Kofi and Chest, and more broadly, the campaign that has brought us together. So welcome, Simpanoy, to summarize the discussion we had with Percy and Lewis in breakout room 4.
Okay, thank you. This is Simpanoy. 2 things from our discussion. 1, leveraging on the indivisibility of rights, even as you have this conversation about children, right to food and healthy spaces, all the other rights together, work together and cannot be separated from each other. And therefore, our work should also look at how children are enjoying their rights. And lastly, this is about hearing from children themselves, that even as we have this conversation and plan for children and how to take care of children, what are the children saying on their side, so that when the two come together, this conversation becomes complete and whole together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Simpanoy. And I want to just check with Percy or Lewis, anything to add before we do the action points and next steps and look towards concluding shortly.
May I'll try to connect a few of those topics since groups 1, 2, and 3 also address the research issue, and that's something that came up in group 4, which I was part of. I wanted to ask, maybe we could create a working group inside our campaign, trying to focus directly on research and I do agree. I would direct research towards education, and this particular kind of education that is directed toward the ground action. And for this, I mean, as Knight just said, we have to mobilize the policymakers through our actions. And I do envision that having climate smart schools is acting on the ground. So creating different educational activities and approaches for teachers to implement in their schools with support from the academia could be a path for us. And this particular working group focusing in research and education research could advance in this kind of topic. I don't know if this is a shared interest, but I really wanted to ask all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louis. So let me not hazard to speak on behalf of the collective, but I want to hypothesize that we do have a strong consensus that research needs to be one of the ways that we keep children at the center of all that we do. That way we can build compelling cases in the different communities of practice, whether geographical or content-based in the academic spaces, that research is of paramount importance. And want to thank you, Louis, for elevating that, and also to invite you to help us to initiate and lead the research space in the context of the CCC campaign. And also to echo the working group recommendation in the span of the next 5 weeks before we meet again as the global collective. We want to ensure by that point in time, we have a consensus amongst a group of organizations that can come together and agree on our shared framework for what it means to initiate this global campaign and to be bound together, happily bound together, and constructively and impactfully bound together in the space of the coalition that is running the campaign. So we also want to acknowledge that there are amazing, important initiatives already in existence. So we want to not reinvent the wheel, but instead to enhance and complement and build on that existing framework so that we can stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before us and still are in our midst doing this work. But our collective theory of change is that there is much work that needs to be done at the nexus between children, climate, and conservation. So just to highlight 4 of these holistic health frames, which I believe a majority and almost definitely each of us in this space have interacted with communities of practice such as these. Those are planetary health, One Health, environmental health, and climate and health. So in the broader CCC coalition space, HCCC coalition space, we want to see about, for example, having children and planetary health initiative, children and environmental health initiative, being a way that the experts in our midst, who are strongly tied to those existing communities of practice, can update and inform us about what is already in existence that we can complement. And if, for example, there is not yet an initiative that explicitly ties together, for example, children and planetary health, that we want to help to initiate and enhance the dialogue and discussion in those spaces. So in essence, on behalf of the leadership team, that's being CHEST and ACOFI and multiple other organizations that have been together over these past several months, we are here to serve you. Links have been posted so that all of you are able to remain connected, to give feedback about what we can do better, and to ensure that over these next 5 weeks, we are able to define what it is that binds us together as a coalition running the campaign. That's being written content. So we will be happy to form or to plan and schedule one-on-one meetings in which we gather information from leaders of the organizations that have been so committed to remain actively engaged in the Triple C campaign thus far, such that by February 20th, Friday, February 20th, which is one day before the official Mother Language Day, but that is our idea. That's maybe for now we look to stick with this Friday timeframe, and tentatively at 4 p.m. GMT that we reconnect and have a meeting in which we highlight the importance of language in the context of children, climate, and conservation. So we take an expansive view of language to even talk about music and art and dance as languages of connection, languages of the heart, and languages from our mothers, including Mother Earth. But specifically to look at the importance of language preservation and revitalization of languages that are actively being lost. And with those languages being lost, it is deeply concerning, deeply problematic, both for child rights, child health, and also environmental and planetary health. So I just want to do a quick time check. We went a bit beyond the plan's 90 minutes. We are now approaching the 2-hour mark since we began this meeting, and just want to maybe invite anyone with questions or feedback, if you can post that in the chat so that we know before we conclude today's meeting. It was recorded. The YouTube link to today's meeting has been shared. The email address for you to reach out, the WhatsApp group for you to join and remain connected for future updates. And otherwise, behind the scenes, we will remain quite active trying to build this ship, build this beautiful space in which we can have a diverse and dynamic global community of practice that is rooted in people, rooted in place, and keeps children at the center of all that we do. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining. Maybe I'll invite anyone who has any feedback, any questions before we conclude. If you would like to raise your hand or just unmute. And also if you want to post in the chats, that is welcome. Otherwise, for example, in Kenya, we will be holding in-person events in the near future. And for anyone from another country, whether Nigeria or Ghana or Brazil or any of the others, we are inviting you to see about what it looks like at the country level, even to connect with other organizations so that this campaign is, again, rooted in place and impactful on the ground, even as we remain connected as a global community of practice, sharing ideas and best practices. The floor is open for a few minutes before we conclude. So just want to invite Knight to close us out with last words and groundedness in how we can keep children at the center of all we do. Karibu Knight.
Thank you once again, Dr. Nathan. And from me, it is to thank each and every one of us who made the time on a Friday to get together to discuss the importance of having children, our global children, at the center, and putting in our minds and our hearts to this work. So I thank you all, and I look forward to the continuation of this conversation, So continue bringing your hearts into this, because like we all know, the children are the future of humanity. And so our children, but by extension, are the children of other species. They go hand in hand. So let's continue with this momentum, continue with this willingness. And I believe that, so in Kiswahili, we say, kidogo kidogo hujaza kibaba. Little by little, we are able to fill the bucket. So when we bring each of our little knowledge that we have, experiences and skills, we will be able to move this work forward. So thank you so much. Be well. Hug the children that you have in your lives, as both small and big. And until we see you all next time. Asante sana. And goodbye.